Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for coming here and your time. And so yes, my name is Paweł Frańczuk, and I'm an activist in Poland. I'm a part of Viva Action for Animals. I'm a volunteer there and an activist. And I would like to give you some hints, tips, tricks, how you can campaign against animal suffering when you do not have too much money, time, or help from other activists. I thoroughly I hope you won't have this problem, but we all know that problem may arise and may happen. So yeah, it's good to be prepared. I'll be basing my presentation is based on the example of our campaign for Animal-Free Circus in Poland, more or less from 2013 till present. And some tips and tricks that I'll give you might be a bit like reinventing the wheel for you, or might be not new for you, but other might help or may inspire you to look at some aspects, at some ideas once again and give them another chance. Okay, now so my presentation will start with a few words about me, and then I'll tell you a few words about the circus industry in Poland. And I need to say a few words about the circus industry in Poland because I believe it is quite different in Poland than in more Western European countries. So that's why it's worth a few words to know some background. Then, to build up your attention, I'll give you some of our achievements. What have we achieved? And then, of course, the hints and your questions, comments, and so on. Okay, so about myself, I'm a vegan advocate, and I believe to be an experienced social and animal rights activist. I've been now since 2011 a local coordinator for a group of Viva Action for Animals, and since 2013 we've been engaged in Animal-Free Circus campaign in Poland. And I believe myself to be a pragmatist and a sports enthusiast. And what's quite important for the sake of the presentation, I'm a volunteer and I have an office 9-to-5 job in business processing. So that's why finding time is a vital resource too. Okay then, about me, about our example. Generally, the protests against using the exploitation of animals in Poland have started in 1990s or even earlier, but they've never had a single trademark. There were some random protests, or some punks would show up. For example, in my city in the 1990s, some groups of punks and hardcore fans would protest in front of a circus and fight physically with the circus workers. So that was that tradition then. Then it changed. And when it comes to the Animal-Free Circus campaign now, it's one of a few Viva campaigns. And what's very important, it has no separate budget. Whatever is bought comes from the Viva's budget, but not much is bought. And this is the only one of Viva campaigns where there are no workers assigned to it. So it is based on a team of volunteers. And Viva workers who help, they do it voluntarily in their, let's say, so-called free time. Okay. So in around 2013, Basta, our fellow organization from Poland, created the new logo, the violet elephant. So that's why the violet. Violet is the color of our campaign, and I believe that ever since then the campaign has been on the rise. Okay then. And very important part. If you have limited resources, there are no miracles. You need to have at least some odds in your favor. So yeah, there are no miracles, let's face the facts. Even if you follow all the hints as much as possible, still, that might not work. So so you may need to concentrate on the odds in your favor. Let's see what were and what are the odds in our favor when it comes to Poland and Polish circuses which exploit animals. First things first, generally, as I said, movement against exploitation of animals in circuses in Poland started early, and my general impression from the literature, from history, it has always been there. So it's in 2013 it was a well-known cause with a noticeable support. There has always been some support for that, and we also had a fast-growing fan page on Facebook. Today it's 75,000 supporters, and it's a very, very vital tool, and you will know why. Very important, we had a few highly dedicated and experienced activists. That's very vital, and I'll be also talking about that. And what's also important, as all of those, our opponent, I mean the Polish circus industry, is disorganized and relatively weak opponent. And by weak, I mean in comparison to the fur industry or meat industry, they are definitely a weak opponent. Now then, so what's so special about Polish circus industry? Generally, their idea seems to be quantity over quality. So, what does it mean? It means that there are about 15 circuses with animals in Poland registered each year. But I think at maximum 5 of them visit big cities, because the others have nothing to show to the big city residents, and they just don't have much to offer. And circuses have from 10 to 50 animals, and the season is getting longer and longer, unfortunately for animals. Now it's about from February to November. And what's vital, I think here's the biggest difference between Western European circuses and the Polish ones, that let's say well-organized circus can cover in one season, so about 10 months, 250 shows with about 200 towns. So to illustrate that, we tracked one of the biggest Polish circuses during the, let's say, peak season, when they were touring seaside resorts, and they had 8 days. Within 8 days, they covered 8 towns. So that's quite a difference in comparison to Western circuses. And unfortunately, that's of course worse for the animals, because they travel more, they have even worse conditions, and so on and so on. So basically, the situation in Polish circuses is not too good, and it has been on the decrease for a while. And what is more, lack of money, lots of stress, caused a lot of rivalry and hostility between the circuses, so they do not cooperate much with each other. And what is more, they have no government backing, luckily. Simply the governments are not interested in that. And I think that in general the public interest and attendance is on the decrease. And some people even suggest that maybe we shouldn't devote our time to circuses if they are on the decrease, but then again I say that animals do not have that time. So that's why we believe it's important to campaign against the exploitation of animals in circuses in Poland. Okay, so you've got some background. Now, to catch up some of your attention, what have we achieved with that, with our limited resources against the relatively weak opponent? We have managed to help establish around 20 local bans on circuses with animals. And what do I understand as a local ban? That's a ban on renting and rather letting municipal grounds to circuses with animals. Now it's about in 20 places in Poland, and in some cities, unfortunately my one is an example, it doesn't matter much, because the circuses do not have to rent the land which belongs to the city. They can rent it from a private owner. So they do it in my city, and then sadly the law doesn't apply. We need a national ban, which we are working on, of course. But in some cities, it makes circuses' lives really really harder. So much that actually this season they have been forced to perform without animals more than 10 times. Why is that important? It's very important because they've been saying on the media for 10 years that it's impossible for them to perform without animals. And then when we meet on the radio or something, we just say, hey, come on, you've done it 10 times. So already this year, so how can you say it's impossible? So those local bans can be sometimes really helpful. Now, circus owners for some time have been saying that circus shows with animals have a really important educational function for children. And when we think about it, we of course realize that it's nonsense, but we needed somebody official to say that. And luckily the Polish Academy of Sciences agreed to issue an official statement on that. And they said that circus shows with animals have absolutely no educational function and are potentially harmful for the development of children. So that was really, really helpful for us. And yeah, so that was a big win. They cannot say anything else about this educational role. Now, despite limited resources, we have managed to have our kind of investigation. That was the very first, but I wouldn't say it was a regular investigation, because we just sent one of our activists who has a young daughter to circuses, and she went there with a good camera and recorded a lot of material, and that was a really, really big media success for us. Because the circuses, as I said, are a bit on the decrease. So when I was starting our involvement in 2013, and I was talking to some friends, we are starting fighting with the circuses, with animals. Will you join us? And some guys were like, "Are there still animals in circuses?" And yeah. I have no children, I had no idea about it. So for some people, especially in big cities, circus with animals, they thought it was history, but unfortunately not. So that's why our report, which was on the media, showed them that there are still animals in circuses. They are uglily exploited. And they could also see those little circuses, which are really ugly. They do shows which are hard to explain. For example, carrying a crocodile with a taped mouth all around the scene, with lights and loud music. That's crazy. And a lot of people just didn't know that some things like that happen. So that was really vital for us. And that also helped us with a few more things, like this one. This is Tembo, the elephant, the last elephant who performed in Poland. And thanks to us being nasty for the circus owners, the tamer and the elephant, they just left the country during the tour, leaving the circus with a big financial problem and marketing problem, I believe. And this season there are no elephants in Polish circuses. And what is more, we've also achieved one very nice thing with our report. That was, as I said, the very first report on the situation of animals in circuses in Poland. We've managed to save some lives. Because, basing on the material our friend was able to record, we discovered that there are animals in such terrible conditions in one of the small circuses that we can actually rescue them. And in 2016 we had a perfect rescue action with 4 Paws and Poznań Zoo, and we've rescued Baloo the bear, turtles and a crocodile from terrible conditions. I think they would have died in a couple of months' time if we hadn't rescued them. And yeah, so big thanks for 4 Paws, if there is anybody from 4 Paws here. So without them that wouldn't be possible. And yeah, before that was the life that was the cage and the barrack where Baloo the bear lived. His claws were forcibly removed, and so theoretically he should never have performed on any scene because Polish law forbids that. But yeah, nobody checks that. I will tell you something more about it later. And after that, yeah, that's Baloo the bear now, living in the asylum, which belongs to 4 Paws and is administered by Poznań Zoo. So I think he couldn't be happier now. So we've managed to save some lives. That's, I think, one of the biggest achievements, of course. And what else? Just to finish with those, we've managed, I believe we had some part in that then 10 years ago, when we looked at the programs that were offered by the circus with animals. Animal acts were like 40% of the show. Now the average is 20. So yeah, I think we had our part in that. And we also had a part in that. There was a substantial decrease in the number of exotic and expensive animals. Because, as I said, there are no elephants, no tigers, no lions this season in circuses. And I think it is a nice achievement for us. And I think the most frequently met animals in circuses in Poland this year are horses and camels. So animals who are, let's say, more resistant to stupid ideas of people, I would say. Okay now. So, one more here. 2 vital ones, in fact. And the Committee of Petitions. There is an institution like that in the Polish Houses of Parliament, and they receive the petitions. We send them the petition with 50,000 signatures calling for a national ban on all animal acts, and they said yes, that's a good idea. So big win for us, and actually now we have 130 signatures. And the national ban is the part of the project of the big changes in Animal Welfare Act, which we are currently waiting and fighting for. And on Thursday, in a week, in fact, we are having a huge demonstration in Warsaw, calling for all the changes in Animal Welfare Act. including the of course the ban on using animal in circuses. Okay, I hope I've caught your attention a bit with all these achievements. And so now, what are some of our hints? How can they be helpful? Now, I think that's one of the most important, but all of them are important in fact. You should get your supporters involved. Remember, you have a limited number of activists and they have limited time and so on, so you need to get your supporters involved. And whenever they get involved, make it as easy as possible for them. So, an example. Whenever somebody writes us that a circus with animals is coming to their town, we try to help as much as possible. We can help with advice, how to organize a protest, how to register it, how to make it safe and so on and legal. But we can also send them banners and leaflets and so on. So make it as easy as possible and support every spark of protest, because you never know how much can be achieved in a small town. I've been used to living in a big city where it is hard to reach the media and reach the authorities, but in smaller towns, really a protest, which you can see in the picture, can result in a local ban on circuses with animals, because there are usually no protests there in such cities. So when there is a protest, that's a big fuss, and of course the authorities are afraid of that. So that can work a lot. What is more, you may have some nice surprises like I had last month. So there was a big fuss on social media. The story was that a lady in a Polish town, she was just walking by an Ukrainian circus, Imperial, which is now in Poland, and she saw an injured horse. And as you can see, the horse really looked terrible. And she took a picture, she put it on Facebook, and there was a lot of fuss about that. And the local media caught it up, and the circus had a really hard time. So much that they went to another town, and the residents of that town welcomed them with heckling, with shouting, "We don't want you here, get out of here." And they just escaped in 15 minutes. They sold a few tickets and then they ran away. And that really made my day. That's what I've been working on. So yeah, and actually they had a really hard time for a week, and so much that after they gave a short interview, and the director of the circus said that they're actually considering resigning from animals for the next season in Poland, because it's only a source of problems. So yeah. That's what we were thinking of. And if you're interested in the horse, the official statement was that he was attacked by wasps. It's hard to say if it's true. People who are better with horses saw that picture and said they've never seen anything like that. So it's hard to say what is true. No, let's say, trusted veterinarian or activist will let close to the animal. So we are unable to tell. But yeah, support every single spark of protest, especially in the small towns too, because that can really make your day one day. Okay, now, what else? As you have a limited number of activists who can help you, and you also have a group of some supporters, please remember to make them feel appreciated. So appreciate all your helpers. Remember, your activists are busy people. They can be volunteers, they can be working and doing a bit for this campaign, doing a bit of that for that campaign. So make them feel appreciated, because you cannot afford to lose them. What is more, when there is somebody, a local leader, rising, contacting you from another city, make them appreciate it too. We have benefited a lot from that. And how? Viva Action for Animals has now about 20 local groups in Poland. And in a large part of these groups, the coordinators or some activists, they started actually by organizing protests in front of circuses. So yeah, they've protested against circuses. Then we talked a bit. Then they thought about vegetarianism and other animal rights and so on and so on. So really appreciate them. They can be really, really helpful, and build a relation with them. It's a very important, and they can be really helpful. Of course, you will have a lot of response from people who will just be writing you on Facebook, hey, I live 300 kilometers from your city, but I think you believe that I believe that you should come here and organize a protest. That's not how it works. So yeah, but if there are people who I'd say are promising, really make them feel appreciated and appreciate your fellow activists, because they really need that. They are busy people, as we all are. Okay, so now, as you have limited resources, you probably do not have enough money, time, helpers to have an undercover investigation or another big campaign. So, as long as this is possible, of course, in your case, make use of what is already there, because the results here can be really surprising. So, first things first, YouTube, my favorite. We live in the age of smartphones, and people basically record everything. And even those, in our case, even those boring circus shows who nobody watches, but we watch them. We do a research regularly now, and we look for things. Of course, not many other people can see and notice. I'll give you an example in a minute. What else can be helpful? Your opponent websites, Facebook fan page, all of that. The important thing here, and in a few other hints, is that in my opinion, and basing on my experience, people who exploit animals tend very often not to be very smart. So they put stupid things on the internet. So make use of that. Really, make use of that, because they're just putting you a chance on a plate. And yeah, YouTube, a story. Now, so we now have like shifts, and so each month somebody has a task to watch all the circus entitled videos on YouTube, and it takes a lot of time. It's boring, but it can really be. You can really have a nice surprise sometimes, and you can use it against them. You can see a screenshot from a video when a dog performs some tricks. You cannot see much, and actually what you can see is not important. The dog performs some tricks. A guy is, I imagine, a dad is videoing it, is recording it, and they're talking with the son, and he's happy. And at one point, the little guy says, "Hey, Dad, I wonder if our dog can be trained to do that." And I was like, "Thank you, thank you. I was waiting for that." So yeah, really, with not in an unexpected way, you can find videos which can be helpful for your cause. So make use of what is already there. And because we can see more than regular YouTube users, and we can emphasize that and use it, of course, against animal exploitation. So it's worth to devote some time even for boring YouTube videos. Now, sir, by any means necessary, up to a point, of course. And here, do you know the guy? Yeah, that's Dr. Evil. And yeah, so are you sure your opponent follows all the laws and regulations? Now, I have to give you some background. Why did we have to start thinking like that in Poland? I'm not sure about your countries, where you come from, but in Poland, veterinary inspection is like total failure. They are more likely to say that you're an eco-terrorist and the circus owners are great guys than to help animals in any other way. So as we gave up on our cooperation with with the veterinary inspection, we thought of some other ones. So like health department, work and safety inspection, immigration office, and so on, fire department, and so on and so on. So for about a year, we made them pay for every little thing, like littering, like illegal posters, waste dumping, and all of other tiny, theoretically, offenses. And we know from our sources that it really made their life harder. So if you cannot count on a veterinary inspection, so use your imagination. And yeah, what about this illegal waste disposal? You may think it's not that important. They just get a fine. They have to pay a fine. Okay, it's not that much. But then we go and talk to the landowner and say, and show them the pictures, and hey, see what happened on your land. They paid almost nothing, and they put a lot of waste illegally on your land. So they are not an attractive customer anymore. So that can be really helpful in this case. And yeah, but why do I say that by any means necessary up to the point? Because that lasted for about a year. You have to be careful with that tactics, because after a year, just all those departments, inspections, they got bored with us, and most of them gave up on reacting to our letters, forms, and so on. And what is more, circus owners used it a bit against us, because they put a few videos on the internet when they put themselves as the victims. That we, the bad people, we made them suffer so much because they have to obey the law now. Damn, we are mean. So yeah. And yeah, also you have to think about your cultural background or the social background, because in Poland it's not much appreciated if you are the one who calls all these inspections and so on. So some people do not find it cool, let's say. So you have to think about it. It's a tactic which can prove useful temporarily, but may not be so nice to be, let's say, published all around that you use these tactics. So, by any means necessary, of course, up to a point. Okay, what else? Keep a watchful eye on your opponent. Basically, what I've been saying is more like this, but what you should look for, I believe, is reports in local media about accidents. On the example of circuses, when there is a medium-sized accident or a small accident, not many people are injured, it doesn't hit the national media. It's only on local media. So that's why it requires some research from your side. So what else? Suspicious collaborators. You'll see in a minute why it's important. Maybe your opponent has some new friends who did bad things in the past. So that can be that you can use against them. It's good to observe what there are new developments, what there are marketing strategies, because you know what their condition is then. And the example, how it worked. Do you know the guy, Lance Horschel? Anybody? Okay, so you know that the guy is a sadist. And in about 2010, Animals Defender International UK revealed videos with him where he beats the elephants, and who by then, a few of them were already dead. So he became really an unwanted person in most European countries. Unfortunately, not in Poland. In Poland, he was invited by Circus Zalewski as a superstar in 2012. But by doing nice research, we've managed to use it hard. We've managed to use this against them, because they've been saying that they look for animals and they only hire people who love animals. Then we say, yeah, right, and we can use the example against them. So keep a watchful eye on your opponents, because, as I said, getting back to something what I've already said, people who exploit animals tend not to be very smart. So that's a chance for us. And the last but not least, make new friends. What do I mean here? I mean that, basing on the example of this circus campaign, there are a lot of people who are not likely to join the protest in front of the circus, but they generally agree with you. And they can also, by their experience, they can help you, they can provide you some nice expertise and insights. When it comes to circuses, those were some artists, circus artists, or circus artists who do not use animals and are against it, and also theater owners, event agencies. We've learned a lot from them, what wouldn't be possible to learn from any other people. So think about those. Think about those people when you campaign against somebody. So think about some competitors, rival companies, ex-collaborators. They can really give you insight, which can be really, really helpful. Okay. All right. So would you like to add anything? Or maybe you have some questions or comments?
Well, first, thank you for the talk.
Thank you.